Peace and blessings to you. My name is Jere B. I am the EntreMusician, and so are you. I got to tell you, this is the conversation I've always wanted to have ever since we began doing interviews here at the EntreMusician, because not only am I a fan of this gentleman right here, I consider myself to be a student because of his impeccable production, because of the longevity of his career, and with him being a giant in the industry, he still has time to take calls from little guys like me. I am so grateful for Mr. Bob Baldwin. What's happening, sir?
Bro, that's quite an introduction, man. Thank you, man. How you feeling today?
I'm doing absolutely excellent, as I know you are.
Bro, listen, I'm still here. I'm still alive. I'm still playing music. I woke up this morning and I felt all my limbs, so I'm totally 100%.
Absolutely. You know, we have a lot to talk about. I mean, I am just in awe of your stellar career, 30 years in the business, 25 albums and counting. We're going to talk about all of that and so much more after we do this. You know, all of our videos are sponsored by the great people at Vocal, and Vocal is the only beverage on the planet which is designed to soothe, refresh, and restore your voice. If you talk all day or sing all night, you got to get yourself some Vocal. Go to drinkvocal.com to learn more.
I need you to send me a pallet of that, man, because I do a lot of talking.
Absolutely. Yeah, you got a case coming in the mail, that's for sure. FedEx, baby, FedEx. Before we go on, man, I want to make sure that we give props where they are due, and that's to dedicate this episode to the memory of both of our friend, the late, great, incredible Kim Heinz, sound man extraordinaire.
Absolutely. I met Kim, 20 years ago when I was on the road with Marion.
Mm-hmm.
And he was just a warm-spirited brother, but the sound he was getting out of a soundboard was out of this world, and I just missed that he left us so soon, man. It was a good brother.
Absolutely, great friend, and was sound man for us as well, and honorary percussionist. So he'd set up the sound system for our band, and then he'd set his congos up.
Those two things.
And hang out. And it was so cool of you. I believe you and Marion attended his funeral services, man, here in Youngstown, Ohio. So peace and blessings to him and his family.
Absolutely, man. Good brother. Man, definitely somebody I miss. We used to talk all the time. Even while he was sick, we were on the phone, talking every week or so, just checking up on him, man, because I knew how severe his illness was, and just gone too soon.
Absolutely. And God bless Lynn, who took care of him. I mean, I attended their wedding, and Ken had already been diagnosed at that time. And for that brother to get up out of his wheelchair and walk to his bride, I'll never forget it. Excellent.
Yeah, that was amazing. I didn't see that, but I know that was definitely a picture to behold.
Without fail. So tell me about you. There's so many things to talk about, Bob. If we were to go down your extensive discography, we would be here into next Wednesday sometime. What I want to do, though, is I know that you have great love and respect for your father. Your dad was your entrance into the music industry?
Yes, my father was a jazz pianist. He wasn't professional, but he was an amazing musician.
Mm-hmm.
And even he was working full time as an engineer. So he was an engineer by day, and musician by night. So he was using, as he would say, both sides of his brain, the analytical and the creative. And he did them quite well. He used to draw schematic designs of TV sets by hand.
Wow. And
he used to also tune his own piano. I need to throw that in there. But when I was when he was actively working around where he lived, he was just north of New York City in Westchester County. Two bass players that he absolutely adored working with. One was Art Davis, who was the last known bass player for John Coltrane before he passed.
I see.
And also Keeter Betts, who was actually married to Ella Fitzgerald at the time. But they used to do duet gigs together all the time because they all live in the area. That area in Westchester County has some pretty rich history. Hugh Masekela moved up there in the 60s when he escaped apartheid. Cab Calloway lived up there. Frank Foster, who directed the Duke Ellington Orchestra, lived up there. So there was a lot of music. And Atlantic Starr lived in Greenburgh, New York as well.
Wow.
And they're like the jewels of the county. So we come from a nice, rich county of music. But Dad taught me when I was 6 years old how to play. Mm-hmm. He have all this great jazz in his archives. He was playing Miles Davis and Herbie Hancock and Quincy Jones and Bud Powell, and his favorite piano player was Oscar Peterson. So I listened to a lot of Oscar Peterson at age 5 years old when I was going to kindergarten, and that brother played so incredible. I didn't even want to play piano.
I could dig it.
He almost made me quit. I said, Dad, does he have four hands? No, son, he has two. Oh, okay. My mind. So here I am, kindergarten, listening to all this music, but yeah. He planted the seed.
Wow. You say something in your book, which we'll talk about in another episode, but you talked about him lifting the 500-pound piano onto the station wagon?
With his friends, yes. The piano was on the top floor of the house, and you had to go down, I believe it was 7 stairs to the outside, and another 4 stairs to go down the stairs to the driveway.
Wow.
So he had this gig in not too far away from where he lived. So he went to go test the piano out the day before, and the piano was out of tune, and there was some keys missing, and it was just like, I can't use this piano. And of course, where you're going to rent a piano a day before, you're not going to do it because it's just a little restaurant gig. So he decided that he was going to go home that night with his friends, 2 of his friends. They lifted the piano, and it was a upright piano. Mm-hmm. Lifted the piano down the stairs, put it on the station wagon, drove off to the venue. And then at the venue, there was another probably 10 stairs to go into the venue. It was a restaurant. So the 3 of them proceeded to bring the piano up these stairs and into the restaurant. And then if that wasn't enough, he sat there and tuned it for an hour to make sure it was right.
My God.
And I should also add, this is like 1971-ish. I think he's paying his guys about $120 a gig. And so I laugh when I hear people saying, "Oh, the gig pays $120 and you're playing all night." I was like, man, that was 50 years ago. Hush.
Right. That's right.
It blows my mind when I see musicians working for $100 a night and working all night. It's like, man, you don't even know. Right. I think the cost of living has quadrupled and then some since the 70s. Absolutely. So why are you making the same amount of money?
That's absolutely right. And boy, I really don't want to get into the book right now, but you pushed the button. I have to say this because you have a section in there for musicians uniting. And if a musician takes a stand in a certain venue and says, well, we're not going to play for that, you got 50 other bands, 50 other musicians that come in and play for less. And so there is no unity. There's no establishment.
And it devalues every musician in that area because of that. And I don't know why musicians insist on doing it. They say they want to get exposed, but there are better ways to get exposed.
True. And you have to be really, really creative about it, but you can set yourself apart and you can get the exposure that you need without being exploited.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And I think, here it is 2019, they're still doing this. I don't know if they'll ever get the message, unfortunately. There'll always be someone out there that'll want to do the gig and, be paid less because they think playing in front of XYZ people is the thing to do. But until artists and musicians start to value themselves more, that problem will never go away.
It's amazing. So what do you let's just dig into that a little bit. What do you think that is? Is that has to be some psychology on self-esteem then? I mean, of course, everybody is not a Stevie Wonder, or you're not this incredible musician like an Oscar Peterson, but you bring something unique to the table that's marketable. And why not concentrate on that? Why do you think there's such a disconnect between I need to play in front of these people and, hey, I have value to share with these people?
I think it's probably more the fact that people love music so much, musicians love music so much that they'll play at any cost, and they don't place a value on, their artistry. They don't realize that if you're playing in a restaurant, which people are paying money to eat and drink, and the restaurant is using money to pay their employees, obviously there's a commerce piece involved. So for you to be in a venue that's generating commerce, and then you're not conscious of it, you're not placing a value on the fact that not only are you a musician, if you're good, you become a draw to other people, thereby making you a marketing haven of sorts. It could be a small marketing haven, but you're still a draw because you've got talent. And so your draw brings people to a venue where people spend money and eat and drink. And so you're bringing those people in from your following, but somehow it never works out where the restaurant says, oh, we've got a piece of revenue from these people that you brought in. Here's 10%. That never happens.
Ever.
You're already shortchanging yourself on that, and then on the front end, you're not paying yourself properly. So you're getting beat up on both sides.
That's absolutely right.
Yeah.
So now, with respect to having 30 plus years in the industry, you've taken all the knocks, you've taken the exposure knocks, you've learned a lot of lessons, but there has to be a central key. What would you share with the person, the EntreMusician who's just getting in the door? And I know you have to encapsulate that, but you're looking back in the rearview mirror going, here's a path to take that you won't have to take all the knocks that I did.
Yeah, well, part of that, if they read the book, they could probably avoid about half the knocks, because I've taken quite a few lumps on the head, as my dad would say. But people have to realize that this is a marathon and not a sprint. Mm-hmm. And I think until they realize that it's not a quick run. Some people have survived off of one song, and that's cool, and I applaud those. But for the greater part of the industry, you have to develop a body of work that carries you from one decade to the next. And of course, you got to keep your skill set up as much as possible. So it's a marathon, not a sprint. I was on Wikipedia the other day trying to accurately figure out how many records I've released. I think I'm up to 30 now. And I've had 13 record deals. So I've had more record deals than most people have had releases. So I've seen enough contracts. I've seen the ups and downs of the business. I've seen labels go out of business. I've seen cats go to jail. I've seen all kinds of stuff within this industry. But it comes down to having the fortitude to go through it over a long period of time, as opposed to just relying on one particular thing to push you over the top.
You make me ask about 3 questions from that statement. Number one, with the 13 record deals, you've run the gamut of being on the huge major Atlantic and many indies and distributorships, partnerships in between. Right. What do you figure was your best platform for you? What was that period where you thought this is the perfect arrangement?
When I came in on the scene in 1988, I was selected by Roberta Flack as the Sony Innovators Award winner. It was an amateur music contest. 300 applicants submitted their music unsigned to labels. In fact, one of the groups that was also pitching was a group called Straight Ahead out of Detroit, which at that time had 2 fantastic artists, Regina Carter and Althea Renee.
Wow.
Both are amazing artists in their own right. So I was one of the finalists with them, and Roberta Flack selected me as the award winner. So my first record deal was with Atlantic Jazz, and that put me on a really nice platform. I was on the label with Bobby Lyle and Gerald Albright and Paul Jackson Jr. And a gentleman named Hiram Bullock who passed away later.
Yeah, guitarist.
Yeah, amazing
Huge,
guitarist.
huge.
Yeah, man, killer. So that was, it was nice to be on that platform for a while. But then after a while, you realize that after you do the math and do the contracts and you look at all the semantics behind a record deal, you realize at that point you don't own the material that you're putting out. So I began to, question, the validity of having a, being signed to a major. And being signed to a major has its ups because it puts you on a different platform to be heard. It puts you in certain kinds of venues. You might get a different pay scale, and all that is cool. But when it's all said and done, when the deal is over and they kick you out the house, you don't own the house that you built. So you become a rented artist, and you're renting the music that you created. So I decided that at some point I was just going to create the music and own it on the back end and make a larger percentage of sale per unit, which was the key. And in terms of longevity, that is also has been the key to being in this business over 5 decades now.
So it's not the fast track, but it's the length of time. And
absolutely,
that gets you in the end. It's making sure you own your masters.
Yeah, because if you don't, then all you're going to be relying on is publishing, and publishing right now is taking a hit because nobody's buying, everybody's streaming. Correct. Everybody's stealing it on YouTube.
Correct.
Correct. So it really comes down to if you don't own your masters and you're not generating any money from that, the only thing you have left to do is to tour. And so what happens if you can't play anymore? Right. What are you going to do then? Correct. Now you're really stuck out there. So I try to look at things, through a long-term prism. And, that's been my conclusion so far. It's just the marathon piece is very important that people understand where you want to be in 10, 20, 30, 40 years. What do you want to own? What do you want to pass on to your family as a legacy? You can't pass on a gig to your kids, to your grandkids, to your nieces and nephews. Because once you stop doing the gig, the money stops. Once you're in the ground, you have nothing to pass on to your family.
That's absolutely right. Absolutely right. You tell a story in the book about, and the book, by the way, is called "You Better Ask Somebody." Right?
Yes, you better.
But you tell a story about a gentleman who was further along in his career than you, yet did not own any masters at all. And this guy had garnered great fame, great name appeal, but no money because all he could do at the end of his career was tour.
Yeah, that was when I learned deeper about that, it was a very unfortunate find. And that was part of the reason why I quested to become an independent artist. I won't name that artist. He's
sure.
Amazing musician.
Understood.
It broke my heart when I heard the story.
Mm-hmm.
But it told me, it gave me a wake up call. Like, this is where you don't want to be. Because if that was the position with somebody who had that kind of fame and fortune, where did that leave me?
Correct.
Who had not even a smidgen of that popularity.
And I understand.
Thankfully, I heeded the warning. And from that point forth, which the really turning point was BobBaldwin.com in 2000, where I chose to, own the masters. There was a record before that called Welcome to the Games, but it never went national. So the first national record was BobBaldwin.com. And that was the one that, in fact, when I used the name BobBaldwin.com, I was the third in line to use my name as an artist, a self-named website. Jethro Tull was the other one, and Fatburger was the one. Was the second one, but Jethro Tull was the first. I think he did it in 1996 or 97, and he was one of the first artists to sell his music on his own website.
Wow.
So
smart.
Yeah. So BobBaldwin.com served a lot of good purposes because when a DJ would mention the name of the record, they would also promote my website. And so I got a lot of hits that way. Free, It was like free advertising.
Right.
But now, iTunes won't let you put a .com on a record title anymore because they got wind of it. Because they don't want you promoting your site for free. So, gangsters run deep, brother. Gangsters
run deep, man. And platform, well, golly. Again, we may have to do like 7 or 8 different episodes because, there's so much there when, let me just say this, Bob, because you can correct me and you can tweak what I'm saying, because in the days where the major labels were king, there was amount of gangster going on. But they tricked you after the Napster, after the liberty of the independent artists, then all of the gangsters start saying, hey, here's a way we can help you, boom, 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 and then it's all pay for play. So nothing really changed in the game.
Well, the gangsters are still there. They just
changed the name of it.
Yeah, they just position themselves in a different seat, but they still gangsters, man. They ain't never gonna change. Music business got some issues, brother. It's unregulated. That's the problem.
Right.
It's like the Wild Wild West. People can do whatever they want to do, and as long as they're not violating any FCC rules, they get away with murder. And it's a multi-billion-dollar industry, but they've hurt themselves. In fact, I'll even go as far as to say that the people that were running the business, were running the industry, whoever they are, they failed to do something very important that most businesses wouldn't even think of doing. Like when you get a piece of software from, I remember the computer store Comp USA, which was big in New York on the East Coast, where you would buy. You remember you used to go to the store and buy a big old box that had like a disk of software in it, and then you take it home, put it in your computer, and you had to punch in this 8,000 digit code, and that code could never be used on any other computer except yours. Why didn't they apply that knowledge to the MP3? So you put out an MP3 that's not copy protected, and then everybody is stealing it. And Napster came in and just took it to a new level. $10 a month, you could download 8,000 tunes.
Amen. Right.
So imagine downloading over a year. You downloading, let's just say for instance, you download 800 albums in an entire calendar year. It costs you maybe $120 to for the full download.
Right.
But you got $8,000 worth of revenue. You got $8,000 worth of merchandise that you paid $120 for. That means somebody's not getting paid.
That's what that means exactly.
You just spent $120 for $8,000. You can't go anywhere in this country and buy something that's worth $8,000 for $120 unless it's illegal. So the people that ran this industry are knuckleheads.
Absolutely.
They should have caught that. And when they didn't catch that, that was the beginning of the end. And then, of course, iTunes came in the mid-2000s, and they're like, okay, they wanted to partner up with the labels. Once again, the labels like, nah, this MP3 thing ain't gonna fly.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Apple becomes one of the biggest corporations in the world.
Yes, absolutely. But the trick to Apple was not just the monetization of music or lack thereof. It was the fact that they were selling the iPod.
Yeah, they were selling hardware. That's correct. Yeah, the iPod and the iPad. And the computers. And they created a monster. But they sold billions of dollars of downloads. They made money on all the way around. And eventually the labels got hip to it, but it was too late by then.
Sure. Well, I would prefer a download, and this might seem archaic, but I would prefer a download than the streaming. That's just Jere. My personal opinion is, at least I got the 99 cent, yo.
Yeah, you're right. I don't mind the MP3. What I don't like about the MP3 is the sound. I wish they just came up with a cleaner version of a download. Like a 24-bit wave. If you could download 24-bit waves, that sounds just as good as the CD.
Sure, absolutely.
The MP3s, I know why they did it, because they
compression.
they had to strip down the frequencies in order to shrink the file size, and as a result, sound gets compromised. You know, like the drums sound swishy.
Right.
You know, I'm sure as a drummer, you're like, man, I did not spend all this money mixing my record, buying all this equipment so you could make my drum sound swishy.
Exactly.
Everything that has a metallic sound has this weird kind of vibe to it, cymbals and stuff.
That's
you
right.
know, so if they had just come out the gate with a copy protected download of a high res file, that would have saved the industry.
Mm-hmm.
But once again, the so-called people at the top who call themselves smart and executives and wear suits and have these fancy desks and everything, they don't know what they're talking about. They fell asleep at the wheel.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
That's my truth. I'm sticking to.
No, that's on point. That's absolutely right. So, you know, we haven't talked about your career at all, right?
Nah, we don't need it.
But how do you...
That's boring compared to this stuff. I mean, these are the things you got to think about while you're having a career.
Exactly.
If you don't, you'd be like, well, why am I taking a hit here? It was because all of these other factors that are working against you. Mm-hmm. So in between all that, I'm sitting here trying to create music and put music out. So, but you got to understand all the little, you know, nuances that are going on while you're trying to make a nice record.
So that's the priority of planning what type of career you want to have. Because if you're just walking in the door to this, there is so much against you that you really have to have some guts. You have to have some testicles, excuse my expression, in order to say, yo, this is why I'm here. Mm-hmm. And in addition to what we just talked about 5 minutes ago with other musicians who will undercut you for the gig down the street, mm-hmm. because that brother is not paying you. In fact, there's some venues that want you to pay to be on their stage.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's the ultimate insult. You know, I mean, if you're renting the venue, that's one thing, but if you're just paying just to be on stage, that's nonsense.
It's crazy.
If I'm paying the venue, I'm gonna hold the door, the gate, the whole thing. I'm gonna promote the whole thing. But exactly. You know, most restaurants and venues don't want to play that game.
Right. It's amazing. All right. Hey, let's flip the script. Tell us about New Urban Jazz. How'd you get the time, man, to invest in such a great program?
Well, let me tell you how it started. First of all, I caught the radio bug when I was in college. And then I went to New York City at a radio station, which was at #1 in the country at the time, WBLS, which was
Frankie Crocker, man.
Frankie Crocker. I was there. I was interning at the station when he was there. So I got a chance to actually watch him do his magic, man. I watched him for a number of months. And I interned with a lady named Pat Prescott. And Pat Prescott is now in LA working at the Wave. But at the time, I was interning at WLIB, WBLS, which was owned by Percy Sutton. Percy Sutton was former Manhattan borough president, but he was also a Tuskegee Airman. And my stepfather and him were good friends. So for those who don't know about the Tuskegee Airmen, these are the cats that were in the service, and they were basically backing some of the other planes, which were flown by white pilots, and they had a undefeated record in terms of protecting the pilots of the Air Force.
Correct.
But the problem was that when they came home and they knew how to fly, they had the same skill set. When they came home, they could not get commercial airline gigs. They couldn't be pilots for commercial airlines. They couldn't work for Delta. They couldn't work for Continental or whoever. And so, but these cats were all very brilliant, and a lot of them just went up and developed stuff. My stepfather was a engineer and a lawyer. That's how deep he was. Mm-hmm. Percy Sutton went on to become the Manhattan Borough president, and then he ended up being one of the first black radio station owners at WBLS, WLIB, inner city broadcasting. So I was a part of that whole vibe back in the late 70s and early 80s, and then got my first job at 1010 Winds, which was a news station, and I was writing news copy for them for several years. So I caught the bug in college, and I never strayed away too far from radio. I always dug what radio was able to do, and eventually the synergy between radio and my career as an artist was a perfect marriage. In 2005 I helped upstart a smooth jazz station in Bermuda. I think it was called K Jazz. And they're not around anymore. I think they got into like reggae now. But I helped, introduce smooth jazz to the island of Bermuda, and I did some programming down in Jacksonville. But back to CD 101.9, which was the largest smooth jazz station in the country at the time. I was driving up the New Jersey Turnpike. I'm gonna give you the exact date too, February 8th, 2008.
Wow, my birthday.
Wow, look at that. I'm driving up the highway. And I get a text. I think I was driving up from DC or something. I get a text from an anonymous source, and they say, "We're going into a meeting at CD 101.9 at 4 p.m., and I think they're going to flip the format." I was like, I almost stopped on the highway. I was like, whoever this is, they need to stop playing. It was anonymous. So I'm sitting here waiting. This is about 2:30. So at 4 o'clock, maybe about 15 minutes to 4 o'clock, I get another text, and they say, CD 101 is flipping to rock. And at 4 o'clock, I can't exactly remember who they played. It was probably Kenny G or Grover. They went from that to like Led Zeppelin.
Just like that. Zoom. Unannounced.
They didn't even say goodbye. They didn't say see you later, kiss my butt, nothing. They just like bye. They just turn the lights out over here, turn the lights out over here. I was like, this is cold-blooded. But they had it coming because they were putting up this format called New York Chill, and it was a disaster. There was a bunch of it was like a DJ lounge type music they were doing in New York. They angered all the people in Connecticut and New Jersey that were listening to the station, and the music wasn't any good. They took all the core cats off the radio. It took Nita Baker and George Benson and all the familiar names. They replaced it with like I can't even pronounce some of the names. But this guy, it was just like grooves.
Yeah.
And so like 65% of the listenership left. They completely bailed, and they never recovered. And in 2008, they finally had to like flip it. So that's when I started developing new urban jazz. I was working at CLK at the time in Atlanta, and I had a gig also at a commercial station doing smooth in Atlanta, WJZZ, which is a Radio 1 property. And so in October of 2008 is when I launched New Urban Jazz, and I wanted to be music that was a fusion of contemporary jazz with a little urban and some Brazilians and some world music. Mm-hmm. So I've been doing it weekly since October 1st, and I haven't missed a show yet. So I think I'm on number 553 or something like that in a row.
That's huge, man. For you,
it's about 3 or 4 hours a week that I spend doing it, and then I launch it to several properties. We're on like 45 stations now. God willing, we may pick up a station in Atlanta soon, and also the Virgin Islands sometime at the end of the year. And we got about 500,000 people listening weekly.
That's excellent.
Yeah, so it's been a blessing, and it's allowed me also to use the platform to play independent artists that wouldn't normally get spins at different stations. So it's becoming a nice venue piece for new artists. It's a great place to launch new artists and also new music.
Wow. Well, if you are just tuning in, or you think that there's more to go and more to come, there is, because we have to wrap this episode up. I mean, boom, 40 minutes flies by very quickly, right? But we're talking to the incredible Bob Baldwin. We have more to go. We're going to do another episode, so stay tuned for that here on this channel. My name is Jere B. That's Brother Bob Baldwin. You're going to learn more and more. Hey, this is the EntreMusician.com. I'm an EntreMusician. Bob Baldwin's definitely an EntreMusician, and so are you. We'll see you next time.